because of certain things. We'll try and keep it simple and understandable, and then move on to what the Lord would have us do in treating and bringing back the human body to its function. So to begin with, we will look at the human organism, and we'll begin by reading from the Bible, Psalm 139 and verse 14. So we'll begin by reading Psalm 139 verse 14.
I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well.
Okay. The psalmist here is mentioning why he will praise the Lord, and he says, I'll praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, that my soul knoweth right well. And in what the Lord has created, if you look at mankind, you will see great and mighty things through the human machinery or the human organism. And if we read Genesis 1:26, that one, 26 and 27. Let's see what the Lord did in the very beginning.
And God said, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And God created man in his own image, in the image of God created he him, male and female created he them.
Okay, so the Bible shows us clearly that in the beginning the Lord said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. And when the Lord created man in his image, he created both male and female in his image. And if you read from Patriarchs and Prophets 45, paragraph 2, I'll ask my brother to read it. PP 45, paragraph 2. Just the first line. And it's to be an open PP 45, paragraph 3.
PP 45 and 2. It says, it says, man was to bear God's image, both in outward resemblance and in character. Christ alone is the express image of the Father, but man was formed in the likeness of God. His nature was in harmony with the will of God. His mind was capable of comprehending divine things. His affections were pure, his appetites and passions were under the control of reason. He was holy and happy in bearing the image of God and in perfect obedience to his will.
Okay, notice that man was to bear God's image both in outward resemblance and in character. And this is external. And this is internal. You see that? And then it says his appetites and passions were under the control of reason. So appetite passions need to be controlled by what? By reason. And if reason is dethroned, man cannot bear God's image, either internally or externally. And then paragraph 3.
As man came forth from the hand of his Creator, he was of lofty stature and perfect symmetry. His countenance bore the ruddy tint of health and glowed with the light of life and joy. Adam's height was much greater than that of men who now inhabit the earth. Eve was somewhat less in stature, yet her form was noble and full of beauty. His sinless pair wore no artificial garments. They were clothed with a covering of light and glory, such as the angels wear. So long as they lived in obedience to God, this robe of light continued to enshroud them.
Okay. So if you notice in both paragraphs, there's an issue of obedience, because in bearing God's image, man had to be in perfect obedience. And in this next statement, it says, as man came forth from the hand of his Creator, he was of lofty stature and perfect symmetry. Here at the end of the world, we are nowhere in stature and nowhere in symmetry with what Adam came forth from the hand of the Creator was. But we can still glean and understand certain things from the human machinery. Though creation has been destroyed by sin. If we open COL 348, COL 348, I'll just read the first line. It says, all should have an intelligent knowledge of the human frame, that they may keep their bodies in the condition necessary to do the work of the Lord. So why do we have to understand the human frame? So that we keep the body in condition so that we can do the work of the Lord. Do you see that? And if you go into the middle of the paragraph, it says the relation of the physical organism to the spiritual life is one of the most important branches of education. It should receive careful attention in the home and in the school. And all need to become acquainted with their physical structure and the laws that control natural life. Now, remember the Israelites when they were in Egypt. The Lord took them out and He was sending them to the promised land. But as He was sending them to the promised land, He dealt with their health. And first thing was the Lord introduced manna into their diet, if you read in Exodus 16. And that was to do away with their perverted appetites and to work on rebuilding their character and their physical stature so that they could do the work of the Lord. And this applies also to us at the end of the world, because we cannot serve the Lord if our bodies are destroyed. If we're destroying our bodies, there's no way the Holy Spirit can abide in this temple because of defiling it. And if we read lastly from volume 6 of the Testimonies, page 302, volume 6 of the Testimonies, page 302, paragraph 1, I'll quickly read it. It says, those who understand physiology and hygiene will in their ministerial labor find it a means whereby they may enlighten others in regard to the proper and intelligent treatment of the physical, mental, and moral powers. Therefore, those who are preparing for the ministry should make a diligent study of the human organism, that they may know how to care for the body, not by means of drugs, but from nature's own laboratory. So, if we are to be engaged in ministry work, whether here or abroad or across borders, we first have to understand how to deal with this body intelligently, and also how to help others in dealing with their bodies. Not using drugs or the ways of the world, but using nature's, taking from nature and using what God has given us through nature in building up these bodies. Now, our main objective is to develop and have a working knowledge of anatomy and physiology based on conceptual understanding rather than rote memory. Now, what we used to do in school is you learn something and memorize it. But if you ask most people who've done that, they don't even remember half of what they learned in school. And what we seek to do is to understand system by system of how the human organism functions, and then apply that to our lives and the lives of others. So this is what we will cover in this syllabus. Our introduction to human anatomy and physiology. We'll look at cells, we'll look at tissues, we'll look at the integumentary system. The integumentary system, the skeletal system, the muscular system. We'll look at blood, together with the cardiovascular system. We'll look at the lymphatic system. The digestive system. Nutrition and metabolism. The respiratory system. The urinary system. The nervous system. The endocrine system. System. Now, as I mentioned, that if you look at these, they are systems that have subheadings in them, and they are in depth, but we will try and have a basic understanding of each system that we can apply and it can help others as we go along the way. And most of these, all of these work together. It's going to be very difficult to separate physiology from things like disease and even treatment of disease and even nutrition, because it's one package, it's one whole system when we're looking at the human organism. Now, as an introduction, after going through the introduction, be able to do these 6 things. Explain how anatomy and physiology are related. So this is our objective. After going through this introduction, we should be able to explain how these two are related. Anatomy and physiology. We should also be able to list the levels of organization human body and the characteristics the level, you should be able to list the levels of organization in the human body and the characteristics. You should also be able to explain homeostasis. Explain homeostasis. And you should be able to name the major organ systems and list the organs associated with each. You should be able to name the major organ systems and list the organs associated with each. Be able to describe the general function of each organ system. You should be able to describe the general function of each organ system. And then lastly, no anatomical terminology. Where I say we won't go in depth, but we'll know basics. For example, if you see this a word with this attached to it, think of any word. Meningitis, arthritis, colitis, appendicitis. What this generally means is that there is an inflammation of that system or an organ. For example, see that? That means the tonsils are inflamed. So tonsillitis is the term that is used. So just to know the basic terminology, because you will meet someone and someone will tell you about arthritis. Now you need to understand the itis, okay? So it means there is an inflammation. What's arthritis? Joint. It has to do with joints. So someone who is arthritic or has arthritis has an inflammation in their joints. Then you can assist. Now you know, okay, inflammation. What causes inflammation? Now reason from cause to effect, and then you start helping the individual. Remove the inflammation and the joints to function, or the tonsils to function, or the brain, or whatever it is. Do we see that? Okay. So now the human body. We are now taking off into the human body. Begin by explaining what anatomy is and what physiology is. Now, both of the two, anatomy and physiology, is the study of the human body. Anatomy and physiology is the study of the human body. Then anatomy examines the structure of a body part. So anatomy has to deal with structure. Of a body part. whereas physiology deals with the function of a body part. And I'll give you an example. This is a rough sketch of a stomach. And the stomach it's J-shaped in its structure. Do you see that? So, anatomy looks at the structure of the body part. And the stomach is J-shaped. But physiology looks at the function of the stomach. Do you see how the two are related? One looks at the structure, one looks at the function. And what does the stomach do?
Breaks down.
Okay, its responsibility is to break down what has been taken in, and it temporarily stores food. Because do we keep food? Does food stay in the stomach the whole day? That's why people constantly eat at different intervals. Because food goes in, it's broken down, used up, so it temporarily stores food. So, physiology.
Anatomy is the study of the structure of the body part in connection with its function, or just studying the shape and
The structure. It's more concerned with looking at how, if it's the stomach looks, or how the lungs are shaped. That's what anatomy focuses on.
just the shape without seeing how it's interrelated to
The function. And what medical students normally do, they normally study regional anatomy. What regional anatomy does is, they, for example, if they study in this section of the body, they just focus in on understanding the structures of this part of the body. So that if they go into surgery, if they're going to cut, if they are looking for your appendix, they are mindful of the stomach, the intestines, the liver, so that they don't cut or deal with these. They just look for the appendix, or what looks like the appendix. Remember, they're concentrating on the structure, and then they cut off what they intend is to remove, stitch up the body, and then release the patient. So that's what they look at, regional anatomy. But we are looking at systematic or systems anatomy, because we are looking at things like the digestive system, the respiratory system, the skeletal system. Do you see that? So this is the relation between the two. One looks at the structure, the other looks at the function. And if you you can't really separate the two, because you can't speak about a body part and its structure without also understanding its function. And most, well, I would say all body parts, their structure is suited to their function. I don't know if you see that. For example, the stomach is J-shaped, and what it does is secretes, this is why I put this line, this is like hydrochloric acid, secretes juices into the stomach, and what it does is, as it is breaking down this food, it moves in breaking down that food. So the function is assisted, the structure assists the function of each organ. I don't know if it makes sense. For example, your bones, just look at your hand. If you take your finger, how many joints are in your finger? There are 3 joints. There's this joint, there's this joint, there's this joint. And this is complex because 3 joints in one small section. But they are suited, the muscles and the skeletal bones that are in this finger, they are connected and they are combined so that you can move your finger the way it should, and you're able to grasp or to clench your fist or whatever function that needs to be done by your hand. Because without these, if we didn't have these muscles, you wouldn't be able to move these bones. It would just be bone structure with no way of grasping. So the way they're connected, the bones and the skeletal system, and then you have the others, the nervous and so on. So even the shape of your mouth, had it not been opened up, you could not ingest anything. So the function of taking in food or even speaking had to be held by the structure of the mouth. I don't know if it makes sense. Okay. So now that's the human body. That's anatomy and physiology. Anatomy deals with the structure, physiology deals with the function. Now we're looking at the organization of body parts. God didn't just make man and just leave things to be, but he put a specific order and even manner in which the body parts are organized. Now, the larger body parts are made up of smaller body parts. Do you agree? Or you just see a whole being and you believe everything is big? Now, scientists have recognized that all materials, including those that comprise the human body, are composed of chemicals. Most of what we are is made up of chemicals. Chemicals are made up of tiny particles called atoms. Atoms. I hope this helps or will serve for illustration. When these join, they make up, what do they make up? Molecules. And when these join, what do they make up? Bigger molecules, macromolecules. I'll just put macro. And these macromolecules are found in cells. This is a cell. Remember, we said we'll look at cells, we'll look at tissues in our studies. And within cells, there are what are known as organelles. And I'll just draw one here. This dark portion, organelle, this is what is known as the nucleus. And the other, I don't know how to call this shape, oval shaped organelle is what is known as the mitochondria or mitochondrion. And what the nucleus deals with is cell reproduction or cell multiplication. And what the mitochondria deals with is it supplies energy. We won't get into the details of these things, so we're just going with the basic understanding. So we see that organization from the smallest particles coming up to the bigger ones. This is how the body is also built up. We might see the big body structures, but they're small ones as you go in and as you take a closer look. And I don't know if this would apply with fractal, because you see the big scale, you see the smaller and the smaller and the smaller until you come to the little cell. But it's a thought. And you see the big and then you
Non-similar fractal.
yeah, non-similar fractal. Then after cells, you move to tissues. When cells come together, they make up tissue. And then tissues make up organs. And then organs then make up, when they now work together, they make up a system. For example, we drew the stomach, which is an organ, combined with the liver, the pancreas, the small intestines, the large intestines, the esophagus, they make up the digestive system. Do we see that? So they're all adding up, and then they make up one system. An organ system, or they make up a system. For example, the lung is an organ that is part of the respiratory system, just as the stomach is part of the digestive system. But there's a specific role. The lungs take in oxygen and they expel carbon dioxide. That's its specific function. But it interacts with other systems. The lungs don't function alone. You need the heart to be pumping blood to move to the lungs and into the body. You need both systems and then the other systems. So now we are going into the organ systems. I don't know if I move too fast, but we've looked at the definition of anatomy, which is deals with the structure, and physiology deals with the function of the body parts. And then we've also looked at the level of organization. But the large structures, when you take a closer look, they're made up of smaller structures. And this is the breakdown of these small structures. So now we are, after organs, we have systems. So now we're looking at organ systems. Now all body parts and systems work together. None is independent of the other. And they all work towards maintaining life and even giving the body the correct function. Now, this is just a summary of these systems. One, the circulatory system. I'll give you the tissues involved and the representative functions. So you can have a table with the right system, organs, and then function. Circulatory system. What organs are involved? The heart. What else? The blood. What else? The vessels. And what is their main function? Transportation of only. Let's put it as transportation of material. Because you have nutrients, you have oxygen, you have other waste that is being taken out from certain body parts. So you need a pump, that is your heart. You need the fluid, your blood, and you need pipes, your vessels. You need these things for the circulatory system to function. You see that? And without the pump, the fluid cannot move, and the pipes cannot, they don't function. Do we see that? And the Bible teaches us that the life of the thing is in the blood. So this is, you can liken this to the river of life, because if any body part lacks blood, all these materials, the oxygen, the nutrients, all the life just ceases. And you need to keep the blood flowing, or the river flowing, because this is where the life is. Have you walked to a pool and stood at a stagnant pond or a pool? What happens? What happens when you stand there? Do you find clean water, dirty water? Dirty water, filthy. So what happens if the blood doesn't move in the body? There's a lot of filth that disease begins to brew, and death. That's why you need to keep a constant supply of fresh blood with oxygen, with nutrients, and taking away the filth. The next, digestive system. All this is under organ system. So your digestive. What do we have in the digestive? Stomach. What else? Esophagus, yes. Intestines, and many others. And what's the main function? Conversion of food particles, right? Because can your body take in and use up an apple at this level? It can't. Because from this system, the organs need to be fed, the tissues, the cells need to be fed. Do you see that? So there's a step-down process of the food particles that enter in, and also the elimination of waste. And this is key in understanding how we need to eat and need to take care of these bodies. Because I'll ask you this question. In what form does food enter into these cells? The smallest in the body. Does it enter in as a solid? It then enters in as a liquid, in liquid form. So if the food entering in here is liquid, from the very beginning, we need to break down or convert food to a level where it's close to liquid. And some say that you need to drink your food and chew your water. Your food is meant to be masticated until it's close to liquid form, so that it removes the burden from the stomach. The stomach digests further, and then the small intestines, so that these, the smallest organ or the smallest particle of your body, can absorb. The next system, endocrine. Endocrine, you have your adrenal glands. And then one important gland, you have the thyroid. So, in summary, their function is coordination of the human body. Or body function by the release of regulatory molecules or hormones. By the release of regulatory molecules. Next, we have the lymphatic system. Which has lymph, thymus, lymph nodes, and this is your defense system or your immune system. Functions defense against foreign invaders. Now, this is just a sidetrack, but I believe it's important. Now, if someone has tonsillitis, what that means is there is inflammation of the tonsils. And the tonsils are lymph nodes. They're just somewhere around this region. And become inflamed. Your body is saying, we can't keep more invaders coming in. Otherwise, we're going to die. And it gives you that warning signal by them being inflamed and there being pain and so on. And the world has taught us to go to a surgeon, they're cut and they're removed. So what the world basically says is you don't need the watchman. Remove the watchman. Allow death to come through. Allow the foreign invaders to enter and destroy the body. Do you see that? Whereas God says, feed the body the right way and set up the watchman. So if anything comes up, the watchman give warning before you get to this point. And when it gets to this point, it's really serious. The watchmen are in trouble and they need help. And I, as a missionary or a student, need to take care of the body temple. You see that? So the next, I won't list them anymore. I'll give you the notes so that we move to where we need to finish off. Characteristics of life. The next subheading. Characteristics of life. Characteristics of life. Now, just as animals and birds relate to their environment, the same thing happens with us. We are born, we grow, and then we become adults. If you get married, you reproduce. If not, so say, life continues. But the characteristics of life involve eating. We ingest food because we need to live. Remember, we looked at the blood that needs to transport material. We need oxygen to breathe in. We also need to remove waste material because we are living in an environment which is not as it was in Eden. But the body can function in dealing with that. So all these processes of circulating blood, taking in oxygen, these are the characteristics, and finally taking out waste material. These are the characteristics of life. Can anyone survive without eating, without breathing fresh air, without bathing, cleaning the body? These are very important things and are key to maintaining life, which is our next subheading, maintenance of life. Now, human life depends on these four, according to scientists. I would say, first and foremost, we depend upon the Lord. Without the Lord, there's no way this system can function. That's one. Secondly, the human life depends upon water. Water is the most abundant substance in the body, and it's required for a variety of metabolic processes, and it provides the environment in which most of them take place. Without it, what we are talking about becomes very difficult without water, because it's the one that also plays a part in the transportation of substances into the body and even out of the body. And it also functions in regulating our body temperature. Imagine if we didn't have, for example, the thyroid. Thyroid functions much in regulating temperature. Imagine if you just sit and your body goes out to 100 degrees Celsius, and then it goes down to 4 degrees Celsius, with no control, 24 hours a day. There will be problems. But God has allowed that the body functions at a certain range and has put in mechanisms that regulate the body. Do you see that? So water is key. And then food, nutrition. To maintain life, the body needs food. We need. And if you notice, these are part of the 8 doctrines. Trust in God, water, nutrition, which is food. Because this refers to substances that provide us with necessary nutrients. And I believe all these also can be applied when we look at the prophetic narrative. We need to know the Lord, to trust in the Lord. We also need to eat the book. We also need the Holy Spirit, represented by water. We also need oxygen, pure air. That's the next substance. And without oxygen, the nutrients we put into the body cannot, the energy that is required cannot be released. And remember, we said that these are like chemicals and even which go through chemical reactions in the body. And for these reactions to take place, you need these very elements we're talking about. And then there's heat. Without heat, the environment can be a problem. For example, heat is a form of energy present in our environment. It is also a product of these processes. It is also controls the rate at which reactions take place. When it is too hot or when temperature is increased, reactions move faster. When it's cold, reactions are slow. Generally, that's at a general level. So heat is key. And then our last 2 subheading, homeostasis. Homeostasis. This is the relative constancy of the body's internal environment. This is the relative constancy of the body's internal environment. And because of homeostasis, even though external conditions may change dramatically or drastically, internal conditions stay within a narrow range. For example, no matter how cold it gets or how hot it gets, the body usually maintains 37 degrees Celsius. In this room, it might be 32 degrees Celsius, but your body keeps maintaining this temperature. If you go outside and it's 35, your body will keep maintaining that temperature. It maintains that temperature. But it's important to realize that internal conditions are not absolutely constant. It's not always that internal conditions are constant. They can fluctuate above or below this. Therefore, the internal state of the body is often described as one of dynamic equilibrium. This is the internal state of the body. But I'll ask you this question. If the body is usually 37 degrees Celsius and then all of a sudden it drops to 35, what will happen to the body? Okay, another word. If the body is at ease at 37 degrees Celsius and then it drops all of a sudden, what happens? If you're not at ease, what is ease? You become diseased. You're no longer at ease. Your body is now diseased because it has moved dramatically from this internal temperature to this internal temperature. Do we see that? Or if your body just shifts up to 39 degrees Celsius. Actually, if you get to, I believe, 38, 39, someone can die. If I remember my notes well. Someone can die at this temperature. So, for you to then meet someone and you check the temperature is this low or that high. What you have to work towards doing is bringing it back to its normal range. Do you see that? And now you have to then investigate what has caused or a sudden drop or a sudden rise. Is it a fever? Is it constipation? What is it? And if it's a fever, what do we do? If it's constipation, what do we do? Do you see that? So disease is the next subheading after homeostasis. Illness or disease is present when homeostasis fails and the body no longer functions properly. So illness or disease is present when homeostasis fails and the body no longer functions properly. The effects may be limited or widespread. Illness or disease is present when homeostasis fails and the body or part of the body no longer functions properly. Like your temperature has dropped. It's no longer functioning properly. So disease comes in. Because this is the level at which the body should be functioning. And then the effects may be limited or they are widespread. For example, there's what is known as a local disease. This is a disease which is restricted to a specific body part. As a local disease. I'll go back to the tonsils. Are tonsils organs? They're organs. So if your tonsils become inflamed and you now have tonsillitis, this is the disease. You see that? And it's specific to a body part, to tonsils, and not your hand, not your leg, not your head, but it's specific to the tonsil. That's a local disease. Do you see that? But then you can have a systemic disease. This one, if you just remove IC, it's looking at system. It affects the entire body or involves several systems. And I'll ask you this question. If, for example, your circulatory system is not functioning, does it function independent of the digestive? It doesn't, or the skeletal or muscular system. So it starts, one system can affect the whole. You see that? Just as if you break one bone, you've broken all. Because these are, you can't separate. Your heart stops pumping, it hit me. No blood, no life, no nutrients. Do you see that? So, systemic disease can affect a system or the whole body. And usually this happens with many diseases, whereby hypertension, I'll come to hypertension. Hypertension will then cause someone to be diabetic, and then cause someone to be to have a urinary problem, the kidneys, and then all systems start switching off one by one. Then they die. Or someone has a problem with their respiratory system, they're not breathing in well, the circulatory system is affected, your digestive system, your muscles, and so on and so on. So, systemic diseases. And then the diseases may be classified in two. They can be severe. They are classified in two because of these two things: severity and duration. Severity and duration. Some are very severe, some are not severe. Some are prolonged, they go for a long period of time, and then some are short. So, there's what is known as acute and what is known as chronic. Acute and chronic disease. Acute disease occurs suddenly and generally lasts a short time. So it's sudden, but the lasts for a short period of time. Then the chronic diseases, which tend to be less severe, develop slowly and are long term. Our time is up, and this is where our notes end. Beginning for the introduction to the human organism. So as students, we must understand these things and be able to help first ourselves, our family members, those that we come into contact with. Because I'll share this with you. People have come to us and they've given us like an MRI scan. I'm sick, this is what the doctor says. I'm sick with. So he'll give you a scan or an X-ray sheet or whatever, or his medical papers. Now you have to read it. Now if you don't know what itis or tonsillitis means, how are you then going to assist? Or they show you a scan and you're blank, you don't know what's on the scan. And you want to say, okay, I don't listen to your doctor, I need to assist you. When you don't know what the problem is, whether it's acute, it's chronic, it's affecting the whole system, or one body part, and then they turn away from the truth. They turn away from God's natural remedies because we don't know what we are doing. So I don't know if there are any questions on what we've covered. This is just the introduction. We'll build from here going forward. But it's key to just have to familiarize yourself with all these things. Because they're just going to add on one on top of the other. Because as we study a system, we'll have to look at the disease and then the nutrition of each system and the herbs that also help with each system, so we can cover much ground and not go through and not lose time because we don't have time. So that's the human system, that's the body you've been given to take care of. That you have to, and this is our responsibility, to instruct people wherever we go. When you read the testimonies, they teach that we need to teach people, to instruct them on how to take care of the body. Many people are ignorant, but there's a quotation that actually says, this ignorance, God holds and records it as sin. If you're ignorant on your body, how the body functions, and you just put in what you want to put in and do what you want to do, God is going to hold you accountable. Because this is the temple of the Lord. And 1 Corinthians says, anyone who defiles the temple, you will destroy it. The Lord is just going to destroy it because we fail to be diligent in our part. So, may God add a blessing to us. Pray. Let's pray. Loving Father, we thank you this afternoon for allowing us to look at both the prophetic message and even understanding how the human system functions. We pray, dear Lord, that you might help us to heed your words and your instructions to us here at the end of the world. We have, Lord, neglected to do what was meant to have been done. But we ask that in the short period of time that we have, we might be able to gather up the rays of light you are shedding upon our path, and help us, Lord, to obey your express command and will toward us. I pray that you might help us to be intelligent, not only in understanding how the body functions and how to keep it, but to be intelligent students of your word, the sanctuary and the books of Daniel and Revelation. And I pray that as we break, these thoughts might remain with us, and that you might give us an opportunity to go over these things and even to share with others. And I pray, Lord, that you might help us to start individually and also to help our family